Hey guys, what is up? This is Kid of Burn 1 bringing you a new deck profile for our Weiss channel. So before I get into this, I would like to preface this with generally this Azure Lane deck is not considered the best Azure Lane list, and I probably also would not consider this like a top tier Azure Lane list. So if you're looking for something to looking for the best list in Azure Lane, this is probably not it. But this list is very fun and a very good deck to bring to locals. If I was going to regionals, like in Japan or something, or any WGP event, I maybe I would take this question mark. I'm not really sure, but I don't think it's powerful enough for it to be super consistent to like win long round regionals essentially. With that being said, we'll just get into the deck here. So the first thing I want to note here is I'm going to kind of go over the idea of the deck and like the core pieces of the deck before I break down every card. So we're going to start off with the level 0 game for the list, obviously. So I guess let me get into the idea first of the deck. So the idea of the deck is that, I mean, if there was a deck to consider kind of like an aggro list, this would kind of be it essentially. So the idea of the deck is that because Azure Lane has some level 0s that let you start the game off with like 2 soul beaters at level 0, the idea is we're going to take that 2 soul beater advantage from 0 all the way to the end of our game, so that starting from turn 1, we have the option to have all of our attackers always swing for 2 soul minimum into everything. So these 2 green level 0s here, this one right here is very, very strong. And then the vanilla level 0. Vanilla level 0s you hardly ever see nowadays, because, why would you waste a slot on that? And then this case, this level 0 here makes that vanilla very, very powerful. So this specific card has 3 different effects that make it very consistent and very powerful for the deck. The first effect is if you have that vanilla in the front row, this card gains 3,000 power and 1 soul. So now we have a 3,500 beater, and generally most decks like level 0 beater range is 3,500. Because we're matching them at least, that's already really good. But now we get an extra soul, which is very, very powerful. So we get to start putting pressure on early on against our opponent, making them skip levels or get pushed to 1 immediately and stuff like that, which is very scary for our opponent in some cases, because the first deck is so volatile on the shuffle. A lot of times people don't have a stability until they make it to their second deck. So with that, we're going to be using these level 0s and essentially our level 1 game here to abuse the fact that our opponent's first deck is super volatile and get in like a lot of free wins essentially by pushing in a lot of damage early by using this level 0 here. That's the 3,500 plus 1 soul, so it's a 2 soul beater when the vanilla's out. And then this specific card also gives this specific vanilla 1,000 power and another soul, meaning this is a 4k 2 soul beater. And so both of these cost essentially nothing, which is very, very powerful. It lets us not only put pressure on early in the game, mid to late game when we need to catch up in damage or anything like that, or we're going to continue pressuring our opponent. These are 2 soul beaters essentially throughout the entire game, which is very scary for our opponent. So even if we're crashing our own lanes, we are keeping up in the damage or quote unquote tempo, because we're always swinging in for 2-2-2 when they're also swinging in for 2-2-2 when we have nothing in there. And that's before any other cheeky stuff we do or a climax being played. So that makes it very, very strong on pushing our advantage and keeping it. And the last effect of this card, which makes it so good, and not because without this third effect, I think this combo wouldn't really be played. But this last effect is when the card does come into play, you can ditch a character to search your deck for a copy of the vanilla. So anytime you open up this level 0, you can immediately find the partner 0 to get the effects. So you can do cheeky stuff early on. Like if you go first, you can play this to find the vanilla and then play the vanilla into the center lane. And this still gives power and a soul to this vanilla, no matter where this is on the board. So you can put that in the center there, making it 4k and extra soul, which things like Hololive and stuff have sometimes trouble dealing with, because usually the card in the center is like Aqua or Lapis, and it's only 3,500, where now they're facing a 4k wall there. Another cheeky thing you can do is like if you have 2 of this essentially quote unquote support here out, these vanillas become 3 soul and they're become 5k power, and that's actually pretty scary in some instances. There have been some times where like I've had like random 0s like this live, and then suddenly I'm swinging in for 3 on a vanilla level 0 because it lived cross turn for some horrible reason. And then your opponent has to deal with being swung in for 3 soul before climax and everything, which is obnoxious. So, like I said earlier, the level 1 game plan also kind of falls within the idea of the deck of trying to abuse the soul output early on for the most volatile state your opponent's deck is going to be in. This level 1 combo is the first effect is when it comes into play. If you have another character, it gains 2k. So 6,500 power, decent power with climax becomes 7.5 since it uses the arch or pants climax or whatever you want to call it. And then the climax combo itself is what makes this fall into the whole game plan that we're trying to do here, which is when this card attacks, if you have 2 other characters in the climax, you can mill the top 2 cards of your deck and then salvage a character that's X level or lower to your hand, where X is the combined level of those cards. But what you might be asking, what makes it so good for this deck is the fact that the second part of it is that if the combined level is 2 or higher, when you mill those cards, this card gets an extra soul. So a lot of times you'll be swinging in for 3 plus whatever the soul trigger is, which is obnoxious. Like, it's almost like you're playing a +2 soul that turn while still having the advantage of not it being a 2 soul essentially. So that's like really, really good. And one, like I said, the first deck shuffle is usually the most volatile state your opponent is going to be in, because that's when they have the least amount of control, the least amount of resources to work your way through the deck. And so this card is obnoxious in times. Finally, we have this level 3. Our level 3 is actually standby. Normally, like when you have standby in the deck, you have weird scenarios where soul output isn't consistent, essentially, and a lot of times 8 standby, you know, you can get away with bad deck states, but in this deck, you can't do that. So when they get into their second or third deck, that's usually when they're mostly compressed, have more control over their deck state. They have the resources to fix bad scenarios from happening. This level 3 lets us kind of like circumvent that in a way. So the climax combo it has is that when you play the standby and you summon the character from the standby, you can pay 1, sack the climax to stand this card, and then give all your characters an extra 500 power, and the effect that if they reverse their battle opponent, you can choose to top deck it. Meaning that we're not pushing too much extra soul onto the board at level 2 and higher, so we're still keeping it kind of like in that we're swinging for 2 range, because we have a lot of early plays, and like standby can bring out some of our level 3s early and things like that. So in those scenarios, we're not pushing too hard, because usually by then they've been able to gather the resources and use their effects in a way to at least stabilize their deck somewhat. So they have an expected cancel outcome essentially, or like, I don't want to say expected cancel, but you know, the ratio there between climaxes and damage in their deck is in a good state where they expect to cancel like 1 or twice a turn, right? In this scenario, by playing this card, we are now mitigating the chances of them canceling once we've gotten that advantage through our level 0 and level 1 game, by only swinging in for 2, which sounds kind of weird in a sense, but also you get a top deck cards that you reverse. So by reversing those cards, we are now making our next 2 attacks more likely to stick their 2 soul of damage essentially. So that lets us keep our lead that we've created, and in some cases it can push it even further and, like, you know, solidify our lead if we're kind of behind. But usually in this deck, you're usually even or ahead for the most part. And then that's the essential idea of the deck, right? So we're just trying to abuse our opponent's poor shuffle early game, because that's when people have the least amount of control over their deck. And then, you know, there's been, I mean, you're here playing Weiss, right? Like, how many times have you opened up and by the end of turn 1, you're out 4 climaxes? Like, if you're sitting across from this, it seems really scary once that starts happening. So that yeah, like I said, that's the general deck idea. We're just kind of being like really aggressive with our soul, and then we have tools at the top end to like kind of push in little chunks of damage to close out the game, which is a lot of fun. All right, now we can get into the level 0 game. A lot of the level 0s you're going to be very familiar with. I think most Azur lane lists play some amount of these 0s. I'm kind of at least in my brain, this level 0 package is so good that I think most or all decks that can try to fit this in should play it. But our main brainstorm here is obviously a unicorn. So this can help fix your hand. I don't want to say fix your hand, but like if you have a bad set of triggers or something going in before a refresh or something like that, and you have a full board, you can use this as a healer essentially, because the first effect is at the start of your encore phase if this is standing. You can pay the cost if you have a full board, which is pay 3, discard 1, and rest this card. Then this deals 1 extra damage and heals 1 off of you. So not only are we already swinging with bigger soul, if we get extra resources for whatever reason and we have a full board, we can now push damage while also healing, which is very obnoxious in a way. You don't use the effect too often. Most of the time you do it, it's more of like you're already far ahead and you're going to solidify that lead no matter what. But the only other time you really use that effect is if at the end game you high roll, which I'll explain the high roll when it happens or how it happens in this deck, and that's the only other time you really use it to really push and close out games. I play 1 of Taiho here. I like the top check 3 add 1 climax effect. Card doesn't get played too often in this list. We don't play the climax combo, obviously. So this isn't like the best brainstormer, but it's a decent brainstormer to like dig through your deck if need be, or if you're need to find a climax for some weird reason. So I included it. It could probably be cut. Like I said early on, I'm actually not sure if I said it early on in this video, but like I said, this deck isn't perfect. It's not the best in list in Azur Lane. It probably has some tweaking that could be done, but this is the list I'm currently playing with. I might change it later. If I update it a lot, I might update this list later. For you guys, but yeah, this is probably more of a flex slot than anything. I just kind of like the effect. Like I said, we play 4 and 4 of the 0 package here. No reason to explain it again. We play this level 0 Ricky. So this Ricky is actually really good for us. There is a green one also that if you decide you want to play the green one instead of the blue one, you could play that one, though I think the green one doesn't work as well for this list because we want things to come from our hand most of the time to proc certain effects. So this is on play. You can pay 1 and pick a character in your waiting room, put it on the bottom of your clock, and then search your deck for a level 1 or lower and add it to your hand. This is very good because because of the ratio in this deck, there are some scenarios where you are going to be forced to level up red first or level up green first, and then you have to use this effect at level 1 to color fix for your blue. The worst color in this list is red. So a lot of times if you have the opportunity to play level up red before anything else, you basically should take it. Most of our level 3s are also like red or green, and we need 6 experience. So the ideal level up scenario is red or green level 3 first, and then second level is red or green again, whichever one you didn't do, because you want 6 experience by level 2, just in case if you high roll a little bit. And then level 3 is when you put the blue in whenever you want. It doesn't matter what color, or not what color, but what level blue you put in by then. And then the final effect, which is very helpful in some scenarios, is at the start of your climax phase, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's level 2 or higher, all your characters gain 500 power for the turn. So this lets you confirm your trigger right at the start. So in some scenarios, for example, like if you play the level 1 combo and you see the top card of your deck as a level 2 or something like that, you can choose to use the combo first to then guarantee the extra soul there. Or you can use the fact that it's a level 2 on top of your deck that has a trigger. You essentially can give a soul somewhere else to another character, basically. If you do reveal climax early on, if you reveal climax from the effect, you can then use the level 1 climax combo to mail that card away, so you don't trigger the climax on your first attack, which is pretty good. So this card's surprisingly very versatile for when you're playing the deck. I was very surprised myself. And the 500 extra power is sometime relevant. Next, we play this level 0. It's on play top check 2, and then rearrange any way you like, and then ditch a climax, salvage a character. Top check 2, kind of important sometimes, sometimes not. It's just a very solid card all around. This does let you, at in game, if you have the resources, you should probably always be playing this, because then it can let you figure out if there's a standby coming up. So if you hit a standby, you can set up the standby and high roll, or figure out attack orders essentially. Finally, it's a climax swapper, and then at the start of climax phase, you can give a character 1,000 power. Relevant. The 1,000 power is kind of relevant sometimes too, but obviously we're playing it mostly for the climax swapper. Level 1, we're playing the pants combo, like I said, very strong card. Next, I'm playing this 1/0. There are 2 level 1s you can play in this list for this slot, in my opinion. There's one that's a TD card that is like reveal top card, ditch card, salvage the level of the salvage X or lower level character from your waiting room, where X is the revealed card. Or you can play that, and then I think the other card is like if you have 2 or more characters or something on attack, give something 2k. Or you can play this card. I like this card specifically because usually the things I'm trying to get anyway are level zeros, and the level zeros I want immediately are on the board, or I want them immediately on the board when I play this card anyway. So it doesn't hurt that much, since this one is on play, ditch a card from your hand, and then you could summon a level 0 from your waiting room or lower and put it anywhere on the board, so that you can get your brainstorm, you know, do whatever you, any of these like very powerful level 0s. So if you need extra soul but you only have the vanilla, you can summon this out here, or vice versa. If you need to brainstorm, you can get that. If you need a top check, you can get this. All very good. Or if you need an extra 1,000 power, you can pull this out if need be. But generally, you'll be pulling out these level 0s the most often without this level 1, because of, you know, extra soul and so forth. But the other reason we play this over the other one is the other one only gives an extra 2,000 power on attack, I believe. This one is on play, reveal top card of your deck, and if it's a character, you can give someone 3,000 power for the turn. That makes it so that when this combo's off, it's 7-5 before power up. So with another 3,000, it becomes 10-5. And then if you get the extra 500 or 1,000 or something like that, it makes this so that it can contest any of those early play 2-1s people have been playing a lot recently. You can at least kind of contest those lanes, or if you're playing against standby, you can contest those lanes using this level 1. And then, like I said, it kind of provides a little bit extra consistency, summing out level 0s and things like that. And then, once again, the top check helps you decide attack order and stuff like that. I think this card's very good. The other card might be better, but right now I'm playing with this because I've liked it so far, and I don't really feel like changing it. This final card here is, once again, there's another thing. This is kind of meta dependent. This is another slot that can be easily replaced with anything, essentially. But it's anytime another character comes into play from your hand, you can give this 1,000 extra power. So if you play this first and 2 other characters, it becomes 6k, which is a solid level 1 beater, essentially. But it's mostly used for fighting level 2. So if the battle opponent, or if the card across from this is level 2, then when this attacks, it gains an extra 6,000 power, making this like swinging for 12k or higher. So you can contest those level 2s. So like when you're playing against like Sword Art Online or any standby list, this like beats up those lanes, which is very solid overall. It helps you like not lose those lanes, so you can have like a character buffer there, so they don't get extra soul. Very good card, I think. Next, we have a 1 of memory counter. Obviously, I play in the English meta, so we need to play a memory counter so people can't double what's his face, Escanor, stuff like that. Memory counter always kind of decent anyway, because there are like randomly a lot of decks that do require 4 or more other of a certain trait, and then cards that want to be cards that want to be killed, you can remove away, or since the waiting room, you can remove them or remove the chance from that, or people with hand encore, you can just make sure to remove those like that. Otherwise, it's still a 3k counter, which is really, really good. Finally, at level 2, we have this level support for level 3s and higher. In front of it, it gains 2k. And the last effect is that whenever we trigger the pants trigger or arch or gate or whatever you want to call it, you can discard a card from your hand to salvage any character. The second effect doesn't happen too often, but it's been kind of okay so far since I've played it. I kind of like it more for that if I trigger a standby at level 1, I can summon out the support, and then at level 2, it starts making my front row basically unkillable without like Adachi's or some kind of like sack counter or whatever like that. There's another support, I think it's a TD support, or maybe it's not, but I think it's a level support or something like that, but it has a secondary effect where you can tap it to top check 2 and rearrange. That is also another very good like alternate level 2 if you'd like to play the different support than this one. I just liked the extra power on this one that it provided, so I went along with it. Finally, we hit our level 3s. So this early level 3, this is an early play level 3. It's mostly played at level 2, obviously. What makes this very good is that at level 2, we can essentially destroy anything because of this card. So if you have 4 more other characters, this gets -1 level. If this card is in the front row center slot, and you have 4 more other characters, all your other specific trait characters gain 2,000 power. I forget the trait, but the last effect is you get to heal 1, which is really, really good. Oh, wait, let me look at this now. Oh, wait, I think this trait actually, I didn't notice this before, but I think the extra 2k power doesn't, it like essentially only goes to this character because of the trait. Oh, slowly nerfing my deck by accident here. So yeah, this is mostly early play, and then also you use it to just heal whenever. We play 8 healers in this list, essentially. Next, this card here is very, very powerful. At first, I didn't think this was too good of a card, but then after playing with it, it actually turned out to be really solid. So if you have 6 or more experience, it gains extra 1500. So it's almost every game, it's 1100 power. And if you don't have the 6 experience, this card is actually kind of useless. So you have to push for that 6 experience when you can. The effect it has, which makes it very good, is that at the start of your opponent's attack phase, you can pay 2, ditch 1, and give a character -2 soul. This has won me games, just the -2 soul randomly. It essentially turns all your cards in your hand -2 soul for every copy of this on the board, which is really good. It also works in the back row. So if your opponent like uses a new Suicide, which happened to me, and moves it to the back row, you still have the option to use the effect, which is really, really good. And then the final effect is that it heals. We play 4 of this, obviously, and the 4 of the early play, because we kind of want to level these 2 cards for our experience. So we put more of it in the deck just in case, just for more chances to hit the level 3 into our clock. Don't really have to explain this again, but this is the main standby combo. This is the standby combo we start using at level 2. It also gives 1500 power to all characters if this is in the front row. This is kind of our finisher of choice. Like I said, there is an opportunity to high roll with Unicorn. Like I said, we barely use the Unicorn Brainstorm just due to like how our finisher turn works if we're playing that blue level 3. But there are opportunities to high roll. So knowing that the first attack is not a standby, or the second or third attack is a standby, is really powerful for this deck, because you can do cheeky things with this card. So this card specifically has the turn you play it, when it attacks, and when the attack is over and you have 4 more other characters, you can pay the cost of pay 2, ditch 1, sack a character to stand this character again when the attack is over. So you can do scenarios where you know your second trigger is standby. You can do this, restand it, sack a character, then on your second attack, summon out another character, and now you have the condition met again for Unicorn. So you can have the option to use the Unicorn effect of pay 3, ditch 1, rest this to burn 1, heal 1, which is very cheeky when it happens, and it's really funny. Otherwise, this is a very easy and cheap finisher that doesn't require climax. Also, it kind of combos very well. Well, if you do end up playing this out the same turn, this happens. Your first attack can top deck the card, then your second attack will now gain a soul, but it's okay because you top decked a card, which means that that soul essentially is, I guess the best way I can describe it is quote unquote free. It's free damage, I guess. But yeah, it just combos very well in this scenario. And then and then the last effect is that if you have 6 or more experience, when it attacks, it gains 3k. So by the second attack, you should be killing anything there. So if they have bodyguard or something, first attack of this gets reversed, but it's 13k. Then it attacks again, becomes 16 before support, which is very, very big. Final card here is a 1-of. This is mostly just used because it's on play. I forget the name of the effect, but it's you force them to reshuffle with 1 less climaxes in their waiting room, so you can kind of decompress them if need be. And the last thing it has is on attack. You can give it you can give this card gets +X power, where X is 1,000 times the other character, so it gains like 4k on attack or whatever. So it still can reverse big things, but we're mostly like using it. Oh, it's Fumio. I think it's called Fumio. Yeah, very solid. So yeah, and then the top end also doesn't require a lot of stock, because we're only usually paying 1 stock for this. We're paying 2 for this on play. So like if you only have 6 stock or 5 stock, you can still get 3 level 3s out and then kind of go ham with this combo here. Obviously, the more resources you have, the more reach you can have. There are scenarios too where we only play this as a 2-of, obviously, but there has been a game where I played both of them and I was able to restand both of them due to knowing that there was a lot of standbys left in my deck, which is pretty funny. I think besides that, that should cover everything in the deck. If you guys have any questions, I know this kind of went on for a very long time, but if you have any questions about this list, let me know. Otherwise, I'll leave it to you guys. If you like the list or have any suggestions for this list, go ahead and leave it in the comment below. I'd appreciate that, because I'd like to improve this deck a little bit more. I'm sure there's ways to easily fix this up a little bit more to make it better and more consistent. But I think that is it for guys. So if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, all that garbage. Check out our Shadowverse Evolve channel if you haven't already. If you're getting into that game, Dean and I are putting out content there. It's kind of slow right now because the game is not out in English completely, but we do already have like, I think like 10 plus videos up already explaining different classes and stuff like that. So it's a very, it's a very good starting point for people getting into the English game. Besides that, we hope to see you guys in the next video later.